7 o'clock, call the meeting order. Please stand for the pledge. Okay, a motion to accept the minutes of May 1st.
I so move that we accept the minutes from May 1st meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Get a motion to accept the financial report and payment of the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Any amendments, Steve?
No, none tonight.
Okay. I know we're still kind of early yet. Louis, you want to do some of those resolutions?
Yes, first resolution.
Before we go any further, on this outline here, we have the financial report and authorization for disbursement of funds, account payable. Why are those two items there when they fall under the same category? I thought the financial report all comes under the same umbrella, doesn't it?
Maybe disbursement of funds as accounts payable, it's not a dash, further description of disbursement of funds. Is that your question required?
I'm seeing both items there, and they both fall under the financial umbrella, and I see financial report and also authorization for disbursement of funds, accounts payable. I just said why both of them there when they fall in the same. I thought we make the vote on the one. Is that correct?
No, I think the
The
financial report we're voting on.
states all the, as of this point in time, where it's reflected there, the account balances and all that. The disbursement is for actually to pay the bills under account.
Well, we need a hyphen or just or semicolon or something there so we see that they're both under the same category. If you don't mind further, I'll put a parenthesis there and put that included. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay, Louis.
Okay, resolution R4213, business personal property tax account. Resolution is intended to amend and affirm the policy of the town of Elkton with respect to taxing tangible business personal property tax. Hereinafter referred to as personal property, adjusting the cap from $15 million to $20 million for the purpose of developing additional general fund revenue from taxable business assets. Whereas the mayor and commissioner of the town of Elkton may exercise their authority as provided under the Constitution of the state of Maryland, Article 11E, the tax property article of the annotated code of Maryland, charter of the town of Elkton, Article 8C 814, with regard to taxation of personal property within the town. Whereas the mayor and commissioners have previously established by Resolution R3 2010, passed May 19, 2010, effective July 1, 2010, to limit the taxation of personal property to $15 million of personal property assessment determined by the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation. Whereas the demand for increasing public services and the consequential cost of providing those public services has necessitated the town of Elkton to increase the cap on taxable personal property to $20 million of personal property assessment. Now therefore be it resolved and agreed that all personal property up to $20 million of the assessment on personal property provided to the town by the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation, not exempt by law, shall be taxed by the town at the prevailing personal property tax rate of $1.11 per $100 of the assessment. The revenue derived from the taxation of personal property shall be allocated to the general fund and utilized for the support of the town's governmental operations. That business personal property tax cap established by this resolution shall be effective commencing July 1, 2013.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept resolution R4 2013, business personal property tax cap? Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the resolution R4-2013 for business personal property tax cap.
Second.
Any other further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Louis, it's, we're done with 5 after. Okay. This is a public hearing for the fiscal year 2014 budget. Anyone that's wishing to speak will have 5 minutes to make their comments to the board. So this public hearing is now open.
My first one?
Yeah, the first one.
All right.
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. Rob Walt, 319 Hermitage Drive, former town commissioner and former mayor of the town of Elkton. And I certainly want to thank the 5 of you and the staff here at the town for serving the town of Elkton. It's not easy what you do. I was involved in 8 budgets, and they're all different. And so I do want to thank you for that. With that, I want to throw a few comments that I want to start off by saying, of course, I'm a little nervous. I haven't spoken in front of the public in quite a few years, so bear with me here a little bit.
You can do it.
I want to comment that at the last meeting I was at, Commissioner Hicks had actually stated about the surplus money that the town of Elkton was going to put into the general fund as a Band-Aid. And I want to say I agree with that. Saying that, the reason why I say that is currently we're going to be short this year on dollars raised for the town, and next year it appears to me that we're going to be $2.5 million short again next year. So I think that instead of looking at how can we continue to raise revenues, because it's not going to happen. The fact is I can't see anywhere in the near foreseeable future for the town of Elkton that we're going to be raising an additional $2.5 million to fill these voids. So next year might be $2.5 million, the following year might be $3 million. It's not going to happen. We have to look at the expenditures. What are we doing to cut our expenditures? And I know it's tough. It's very difficult decisions that we have, but I strongly believe that you have to look at as many departments as you can, what we have, and cut back. And I reviewed the budget very slightly, but I have a couple comments as I go through, and maybe it might put something in your ears that maybe you can think about as you move forward. No one here believes in Parks and Rec more than I do. I can tell you that. I am very dear to me is the Parks and Rec department, but when I look at the budget and I saw that the revenue coming in for Parks and Rec was just a little over $100,000, but our expenditures were over $400,000. There's a problem there. Before we move forward with any types of Parks and Rec program, I think that you need to make sure that at least we can get that thing pretty darn close. I'm not saying that we should be a revenue producer or a profit center, but I do believe that that gap has to close a little bit. So you're looking at several $100,000 right there that I saw right from the get-go. And I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, or you don't need to correct me if I'm right or wrong at this point, but maybe take a look at it. I think you just need to get it balanced. Over the last 5 years of budgets that I reviewed, our departments in general have been pretty flat. I actually say it's your department heads have done a pretty good darn job of keeping everything fairly flat and without an increase. But you know where I'm going to go with this. No one believes any better than me than public safety, and I know a lot of things changed when we had 9/11. But I can tell you, when our public safety department has grown, actually doubled for the town budget in the last 5 years. Over 50% of our town budget is public safety. And I think we're comparing ourselves to the city of Chicago and the city of New York City when you look at those numbers. It should be around 25 to 30%, not 50%. And I think you really need to take a really close look at that. I know in some degrees your hands are a little bit tied, but I think you have to look at it. Maybe it has to come to the point where we have to cut back on some people. Maybe we have to furlough some of our public safety folks in our town. You have to take a close look at that. And if you were able to knock out the inventory or the overtime request of over $300,000, if you could get the Parks and Rec kind of balanced out a little bit, and you maybe make some changes in the public safety, I think you could get that $2 million. So that's my comments. I'm probably right pretty close to my few minutes, but thank you once again for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else would speak?
Bob Litzenberg, 105 Walnut Lane, Elkton. Rob covered a lot of things that I had planned to say, but he's already covered those, which is good. On page 1, do you all have the budget in front of you? Under intergovernmental revenue, state police aid, what is that? Does that go to the police department, or what is that?
State aid for police protection grant.
In other words, it should be in the police department's budget.
Well, this is the revenue side of the budget page.
Okay, but it goes to the police
General fund
department.
revenue.
Goes to the police department.
Well, it actually goes to everything, because they expend more than that, so it's just general fund revenue.
Okay. What is the CHRP grant? What's that?
What is the church grant? That number,
Do you know what it is, Mr. Mayor?
No, I'll be honest with you. Look at CHLP abbreviation.
A competitive grant that, for hiring and recovery program.
Hiring recovery of what?
Police officers, law enforcement.
Oh, is that the one we got the grant for the police, those police officers we got? For the two police officers.
that's the two police officers.
The two police officers, yeah. That paid for them.
Paid for 2 police officers for the 3 years. Was that the grant you had a couple years ago?
Yes.
And when that grant is done, then we have to pick up the cost without the grant.
That'll be correct.
Okay, page 2. We get down to the parking meter revenues, $5,000 off, whatever it may be. That's neither here nor there. Parking fines, $30,000, and you're off 29 from last year. What's being done to collect these parking fines and violations that are in arrears? Several years ago, when I asked that question, I think there was 75 or 70 some thousand dollars that was out, uncollectible. What's being done about that?
Plus, on our behalf, there are contracts that works with our ticketing system. They will do letters for us. About 3 or 4 times a year, we'll have them do letters to us for out-of-state parking tickets that are no older than 3 years old. For their experience, anything over 3 years old, the reality of collecting those are greatly diminished.
Well, that's what the answer I had before. But my suggestion is, and it was brought up before, about putting boots on these repeated offenders. It seems like it's the same people over and over and over again that just don't pay the fines because they know they're not going to be fined. I mean, they're not going to have to pay them. If you put a boot on it or tow it, they're going to have to pay that fine before they get their car back. Just a suggestion. That's page 2. Page 8. Under your general services, you've got one employee that makes $37,975 with the FICA health insurance, workman's comp, and pension. His pension, plus it was take the uniforms out, $27,910 for a guy that's making $37,000. That just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You're talking $66,000 and $27,000 of it is overhead. It's something like that. You hate to see somebody lose a job, but it looks to me like you could sub that out a whole lot cheaper than what they're with just one employee. It's on page 8. I mean, a lot of the insurances, we know they got to have those, but they seem like they're certainly not a whack of like. Page 12, Police Department. You've got an increase of $45,000 this year in overtime as opposed to last year, an additional $45,000. That's an awful lot of money. They did reduce the fuel by $17,000, which is a plus. Are they still, some of them still taking cars home? Because I think, I asked you once before, and said there were 17 that were taking cars home, is that correct?
We still have the take-home car program, yeah.
How many cars are taken home?
27.
27 cars are taken home out of 45. Well, it looks to me like somebody ought to be paying for that fuel to and from work. I mean, I don't know of anybody else that gets paid for it. Diane Broomall tried to get reimbursed from her house to the county, and the county said no way. And I don't see any difference in this situation. That could be cut back somewhat. Under personnel cost, you've got pensions for $377,225, and under professional cost, you've got pensions down here at $8,000. Why have you got a pension down here? Why is it not included in the pension up top under personnel cost?
That $8,000 for an actuarial study that will be conducted during FY14 that will tell us what the required contribution will be for FY15 and 16. And the $377,000 above is the actual contribution.
That's the act of 2014, correct?
That's correct.
And what's this again now?
8,000 every 2 years, the town is required to have an actuarial study conducted to see what the required contribution is for the police pension plan.
Well, don't you already have that in the contract that you signed with the police
But it's only
officers?
good for 2 years at a time. The rate that's determined by an actuarial is calculated and it's good for 2 years at a time, and they go back and evaluate the contributions and interest earned, the population, the age of the population, and the number of police. It's all part of having a defined benefit plan like that.
Okay. Well, let's go over here on the other one. On the police support service, you've got an increase in salaries plus overtime. I don't understand how a secretary, forest office associates get $28,000 in overtime. I just don't know where they can be doing that. How are they getting the overtime? Where's it coming from? What are they doing to get the overtime?
Chief, how are they, you're talking about the personnel and support that they get
On
overtime?
page 13. I have an answer?
Well, it should
Never
be-
mind, we'll move on.
All right, Bob,
2011. I don't have a budget here for 2000. Okay. In 2011, the police department's budget was $4,607,470. This year's budget is $5,799,945. In a 3-year period, that's an increase of $1,190,000 in a 3-year period for the police department, public works, or for public safety. I mean, I don't know how you look back at these budgets in the past and see what's going on. I just don't see how you can justify these increases the way they are. I don't see how it can be done.
okay, Bob, the time's 5 minutes.
Pardon me?
5 minutes.
Is up.
5 minutes.
I say my 5 minutes is up.
Up.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Lemon. Now you know who I am.
Yes, sir.
103 Walnut Lane, Elkton. I've gone through this budget quite thoroughly, and I've done a lot of calculations and one thing or another. What I would like to see,
Can you push the mic a little bit closer to you?
what I would like to see is you developed a plan to reduce costs. I haven't, in what I'm seeing through all this, and you reduced costs in the budget for this current budget, I see that in the paper. But I think you need to develop a plan and a plan of action to reduce these costs. And I would like to be able to come back here sometime and see that. And so that's number one. Number two is I've read the newspaper article. Mr. Hicks, you mentioned something about the town. I think I had this quote right. The town passed over too many ideas to create revenue in the town. So I think you guys need to sit down, lay those ideas out, and then to create revenue. And then I think you need to assign those duties to people to pursue it. And I think you need to start it now. But you're at the point now where the budget has to be in on May the 20th, so you don't have a lot of time to pursue things. But the thrust of what I'm trying to say, and I reflect on what Mr. Alt said, costs need to be reduced. But I think what you need to do is to start now and develop a game plan to increase revenue and to reduce costs. And I think you have to be serious about it. And it's always too easy for a governmental agency to come back and just raise taxes. The real world of business doesn't work that way, and the real world of government shouldn't work that way. So that's part of what I wanted to say. Looking through this budget, where should the cost emphasis be? It should be on people. Salaries, FICA, pensions, and health represent 76.6% of this budget. And so if you need to know where the money is, that's where it is. Health insurance, the cost of health insurance is $1,602,795. That's 13.6% of the budget. That's included 76. I think you should go out on the health insurance and get competitive quotes. That's big bucks. And I think you need to get away from the old boy Elkton network, and you find that in all small towns, but you got to get away from the old boy network and go out and get professional bids on your health care. It seems high to me. Maybe it isn't, but I think you need to go out and find out. So I wanted to mention that. I'm not going to ask any questions to ask for answers because I'm short on time, but overtime is $402,450. FICA in that is $30,586. So in the police budget, you go from $219,000 to $264,000. So I think you need to justify that as to why that's there and try to get it under control. And if you reduce overtime throughout the organization, you reduce your FICA taxes and some other costs that you have. So it carries forward. So you've got to think in those terms. Some things I'm not going to ask for answers, but the workman's compensation, the police department is 283 to 381. I don't understand that. Public works, maybe you need this, but you're going from street repaving from 88,000 to 303. That's up $214,460.
That was offset by revenue in the same amount.
That doesn't mean that you should spend it.
Well, we have to spend it for that. We can't spend it for anything else.
Why not?
That's the way towards highway.
Well, the law, I don't like the law. Street lighting, same thing, 153 to 180. Just a question. Then you look at certain things, and this is just an example. You look at salaries. You have a janitor or a housekeeper for $37,975, and yet his health insurance is $18,635. You might ask why that is, and I don't need an answer. I'm just saying. You have vehicle purchases. You have vehicle purchases in there. Are you getting competitive bidding on your vehicle purchases? Are you letting people in Elkton bid on these things? I think that it's important, and so you should. I'm suggesting that you should do that.
Okay.
Am I running out of time?
Time.
Okay, you got my message.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Off a state contract price. The vehicles are purchased off a state contract price, so they're already at the best price that we can get.
How do you know that?
It's off the state bid list.
You think the state is doing a good job? Do you know?
Well, I think the buying power of the state is much greater than the buying
I
power
can
of
tell you,
Elkton.
the state bid on a vehicle is a lot less than what we paid for it here. We've already been through that number of times.
Mr. McCall, I'd like to come in and see you sometime. You mentioned in the paper, police pensions and contributions and health care for next year. I'd like to see what that is. Can I come in and see you sometime?
You sure can?
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else? Okay, then this public hearing is now closed. Okay, have ordinance 4-2014, fiscal year 24 budget for presenting for introduction purposes only. You got that, Lewis?
I'm sorry? I do. Is it accepted for introduction?
Right, that's it.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
I didn't hear a motion.
okay.
Mayor, if I may, I was going through some figures today, and I know this needs to be voted on before May 20th. So I'd like to bring it to everyone's attention now. When we were first given the constant year tax rate, it was what the state wanted us to adopt at .5241. And it was a gain of $657,000, $657,346. And with that, we were looking at an increase of about $10.08 a month for someone, or $121. Then we changed that to go to the adding revenue to the constant yield tax rate to .5856, which made it a $244 a year and $20.33 a month. And the reason why I'm saying for a month, because most homeowners, is that not right?
I think the figure you gave, the constant tax rate, you stated the increase over the current year's tax rate. That
Well,
was
it's over
what was
the,
generated.
right, from the
Right.
4.4632,
But
I'm sorry.
that constant tax rate
From the
was
current
generated the same amount of revenue as that current, this year's lower tax rate.
Because of the drop in the
The
assessment.
assessments went down so much that the rate.
Right, so we need to
There's no more money.
Right, and I understand. So there's a difference of $6,654 going from adopting the constant yield tax rate of .5241
Okay.
to an additional, which makes it the .5856.
It was 180,000 times, so it's like $648,000. The current, what is proposed at 58.56 represents an increase of 6.15 cents.
Right,
The constant tax rate would generate approximately $664,000.
right, but what it was, right, and so, but what we're seeing here, what it looked to us was $123 a year. But from
That's what that
current,
$6 or
I know, but I'm saying to a citizen though, it really is the $244 a year from last year.
No, it's the $123 a year. The constant yield tax rate of 5241 would generate the same tax bill to everybody as the current year's 4632, because everybody's assessment went down.
Right, okay,
Okay, that's
okay.
what the constant tax rate is, generate the same revenue for everybody. So that what is proposed as an increase to the constant yield tax rate is a $122 increase on the $200,000 that's operating. Yeah, the assessment was down by 11% overall.
I was trying. That was last minute.
You got anything?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments because I know the last work session, first of all, I want to thank each and every one that came and spoke towards this budget. I didn't hear anything that I didn't agree with from ex-mayor Alt, Mr. Richard, and Mr. Litchenberg. I think all three of those have a very a good, intelligent background when it comes down to finance, and I really appreciate your comments. Just to clear one thing before we go any further, I do know that the one person you talked about, the janitor, this person does enough work for 3 people, and I can stand behind and say that salary that is he's getting paid is probably less than what any other person from the school board or any other person gets less. And if you add their pension, their health insurance and everything in, you'll see that it's pretty much below average. I'm speaking on behalf of him, but that's not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's my take on that. Just to clear a statement that I know, I don't get into freedom of the press. I don't get into freedom of speech and your opinion. I don't want anybody to think I'm saying this, but I just want to clear something on that. The part where we talked about the recreation center, I know that we're the program looks like it's spending more than what it's taking in. I agree with that, but we're not trying to run a program for Parks and Rec to make money, but I see where we're at a deficit. So I do agree with that. The thing is, with the recreation center, we weren't planning on getting a recreation center to fund the recreation center. I just want to make sure that's clear. We weren't trying to make money to keep the recreation center going. When we first made the vote on the recreation center, there was over $5 million in the budget. $5 million, and that's where the decision was made on money that was already there. So I want to make sure that's clear because it states that we made a decision based on money that wasn't there. I just want to make sure that this is clear. Okay?
Do you have an operating budget?
Sir, I'm just making a comment.
You can't talk to them.
Okay? And so what I'm going to say is, at the last meeting, we included 17 computers. I'm going to ask this question because I want to know where the 17 computers came from. They were added in at the last minute, but the rest of the board, it was like last meeting. All of a sudden, 17. Could someone explain, first of all, the 17 computer phase and the process behind that? Because these are the little things that will change a budget real quick, adding things, putting things in without anybody really voting on it. So the 17 computers, does Mike explain where those come from?
There have been a casual conversation with Mike Devine, our IT contractor, that there would be this need to upgrade the operating system on a number of the town's computers. It wasn't until April 29th that he quantified that amount, the total number of computers, which was after our last workshop session, that exit workshop session that was on April 24th. But April 29th, he gave us a letter saying these are the computers that had an operating system that there would no longer be support for in April 2014 by Microsoft. So these computers were deemed to be not worthy of upgrading the operating system alone, so it made more sense to purchase new computers. We didn't get that list from him until 11 April 29th.
The question is, how do I know that we got the best price for the computers? Number one, I see in there's $29,630 for 17 computers. How much did the computers cost and how much was labor? That's what I want to know.
We've got $1,200 in each computer. We haven't purchased yet. We purchased them off the government contract from Dell. That's what we've been purchasing. But we do look around for those. And when it comes time to actually purchase them, we will continue to look around and get the best price. And there is, I think, with the 3 hours for each of the computers, 2 or 3 hours, is estimated time to install the software in each of the computers.
So the software
does not come with the software included.
Oh, no, it does come with software, but for Mike to load all the programs that each individual uses in their computer, he estimated his time touching each computer would be.
But these are custom.
Yeah, good order.
We're not at Microsoft 8, and these are Microsoft.
All right, well
7 and 8 you have to get.
Because we don't want the newest system.
okay. Well, I'm back to, if we're going to be more aggressive like we talked about before of the budget, then we've got to sit down as a board and make decisions together, not just one person come in and make a decision that we need 17 computers. That was not added into the department head's budget. Each department head, we took time to go to these budgets, each one of the department heads, what they need. If they needed a typewriter, oh no, you can't get that. But now all of a sudden the computer's just thrown in. There's my point I'm making. If we're going to be more aggressive, we're going to be more aggressive. We're not just going to sit there and wait until the last minute and say, well, we're going to vote on because we did it already. There's where my point I'm making is. There is not one time that I made a decision, or I want to say the board, based on we just had to go ahead and do it. We've got to, when I left last work session, I had asked the board, let's look at what we can do to start raising more revenue so that next year this won't happen. I understand if you're minus 2 million now, you're going to be 2 million later if you don't make changes. We are one town that doesn't try to change anything. We just want to live and grow on just what we have instead of trying to better the community. I've made contact with Aberdeen. I made contact with Havre Grace, the Middletown mayor and commissioners, trying to figure out what they do to change so that we won't have to raise taxes, that we can actually make some adjustments. And each one of these people are giving me input. What I challenge the rest of the board to go ahead and do the same thing instead of sitting, waiting for something to happen, a miracle. Because that's where we got to make the change. It's not just the people in the community. The board has to make changes and go out and be more aggressive on finding ways to make this happen. And I'm saying this, yes, if you want to say I'm patting myself on the back, that's what I can say I'm doing, because I'm tired of sitting, waiting for something to happen, a miracle, and then say we don't have no more money. When we made the decision to go forward, money was there, but then we had the artesian issue. We had other issues that everybody started taking from the general fund. Not what we really planned on doing. Everybody started dipping in the fund. That wasn't our decision based on that. It was just at the time. We had to make some kind of rash decision, and here we knew money was in the general fund. That wasn't the way we looked at it from the beginning. So I want to make sure that's clear, because I don't care what the press writes and what people say. My opinion still stands on how I feel about this budget, and I still stand with my same thought.
I want to congratulate you on doing that.
All
All five of you up there operate like a board of directors, and you should be involved. You should be involved in finding out and doing just what you did.
There are no RTE
I'm not-
expenditures in the general fund.
Yeah, no, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I just, do you have something?
No, go ahead. You go ahead. If I do, I will.
I tell you, I guess, I listen, and with all due respect, Commissioner Finer, I can really appreciate what you've gone out and done. And I guess, you know, I've accepted your challenge a couple of years ago. You know, I felt like I brought some great ideas to the board in a way of different ordinances to change the face of the community in a few different ways that also had the opportunity for more revenue. One particular thing is not going to produce enough revenue to have a significant effect on our budget at this time, but over amount of time that can all add up with us cutting our expenditures and things like that. But I got to tell you, you know, a lot of times when you speak, I hear you speaking for the board, and maybe I'm hearing you wrong, but you know, I've been out in the communities as well, and I've made a lot of contact and brought a lot of different ordinances and suggestions, vacant property, rental code, our just different things to this community. You know, us being 50% plus more rentals and things like that, so we can get some things under control. I got to tell you, you know, I take offense to that statement that you made about the board has to be more active. I think the board is very active in the community, such as yourself.
I want to say one more thing. I love the challenge, and thank you, because we do need to get more aggressive here. I made a statement at the workshop that as soon as we get the final figures for this year's fund, we have a workshop about it, look at where we're at, and continue to do that quarterly, so that we know what's happening with the money and what we need to do before we get to this point. And we did discuss, for those of you who weren't at the workshop, and it wasn't across the media, we discussed looking at our interest rates on our bank loans, to cut them, because we know we could save money there. But like you said, go out and get bids on everything we do, everything that's contract, get new bids, and that's where we need to start, because we are a good business, and to keep this good business moving forward, people need to come in and you know, we need to get bids from other people rather than staying with the same thing we've had for a long time. So I take the challenge, and hopefully we'll just move forward and be more aggressive on this throughout the year.
The only thing I basically have to say is that it is crunch time with the budget. It just didn't happen. We weren't properly advised to this point. I think right now everybody has a lot of ideas. And I say this in love, and including me too. I just think overall we did not do a good job as mayor, commissioners, and administration. We just haven't done a good job. And we're not pointing fingers, but I think we could have done a better job. And as Mr. Lemon said back there, that, you know, for next year we need to start looking at issues now and not later. It's very important. And I also think, Mayor, and I know it's in your meeting, we only had 3 people back there. I think I would like to have heard them talk more than the 5 minutes. And I can see if there was a pack house, because I think we invite them here for ideas, and actually we didn't really get a chance to hear some, and they were good. And certainly we invite them here for that. So I'm saying it's in love. It's no indictment against you, but I just think there's things that we need to be able to do and do better. I don't have the answers. We don't have the answers. And collectively, we need to come together if this is going to be, if it's going to solve anything. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, I know it has been one of the, probably the hardest budgets that I've ever had to go over. And I know we tried to do the best we could for the community with taxes wise. The economy, of course, has not been in our favor. We have lost a lot of money with the constant yield tax over the 4 years. And we've just tried to make it easy on everybody, but as we all see now, time has caught up with us, and we're faced with some big decisions. And right now, our decisions are that we need to start cracking down, and we need to start having meetings, and we need to come together as a team here to come up with some more revenue finding things that we can do to help the town, and look at some of our ordinances and see if there's any thing there we can change as far as any the fines or anything we're doing here, increase that. We just got to really sit down and go over everything. And I think that, in fact, that's what we've got to do, and that's what we must do. So with this coming year, I would suggest to the board that we start having these meetings on a regular basis and see what kind of ideas we can come up with, and hoping we can try to make this a little better situation for next year. I know it's going to be rough next year, but we certainly will definitely try to make it as easy as possible and see what we can come up with. So that's my spiel. All right, we do have an ordinance 4-2014 for introduction purposes only. So we get a motion to accept ordinance 424 presented for introductions only, the fiscal 24-14 budget.
I move that we accept ordinance 2-20, I'm sorry, ordinance 4-2013 presented for introduction purposes for the fiscal year 2014 budget.
Do I have a second? All right, hearing none. Motion fails. Okay.
Puts us in a precarious position because I can't notify the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation what our tax rate will be in order to have the county bill taxes or to notify or have the magnetic tapes done in order to have that done. We won't be able to generate tax bills come July 1 unless they have a tax rate by the 20th of May. I mean, I'm just your administrator, but I can tell them that, but it involves a lot of people and our income.
by not having a budget.
Okay. All right, next public hearing on Elkton wastewater treatment plant raceway dredging project. Jeannie? We had a comment, nobody, that was it. Does anybody, hold on, does anybody want
We continue.
to reconsider?
We continue to go more.
The budget has to be adopted as an ordinance. If you fail to make a motion to introduce it, it can't be adopted subsequently.
Right.
So you essentially go into the next fiscal cycle without a budget,
Without a budget.
and our government won't be able to operate. I don't know.
I will
Understand how you
second for adoption, for introductory purposes only.
Yeah, that motion failed.
I move that we accept ordinance 4-2013 presented for introduction fiscal year 2014 budget.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Purposes only.
Aye.
Aye.
I'd say nay, I'd still stick with my guns on this one.
I'll abstain at this point, so you still got your 3.
1 nay, 1 abstain, and 3 ayes. Yeas.
Tommy? Steve, have we looked into refinancing those?
Absolutely, that's included in budget. Your request is about 14,000. We haven't secured the refinance loan, but it's about $14,000 savings. We anticipate debt service existing loan for this building. So that has been looked into. I've had a couple of conversations already. I'm still waiting for a response from PNC, who was the holder of the current loan. But that's my first stop with refinancing, waiting for a big figure from that. That has been incorporated in the budget, that projected savings from refinancing.
Okay. All right. Jeannie?
Evening. This is a public hearing to obtain public comment on a CDBG Community Development Block Grant application for the Elkton Water Treatment Plant Raceway Dredging Project. We have resolution 6-2013. Before I read the resolution, the Maryland Community Development Block Grant Program is a federally sponsored program designed to assist units of general local government with activities directed towards neighborhood and housing revitalization, economic development, and improved community facilities and services. The amount of funding the state of Maryland has allocated for fiscal year 2014 under the CDBG program is $6.4 million. The town is going to request, submit an application to assist with funding the Raceway Dredging Project for a water treatment plant on the south side of Maryland 281 East Main Street, adjacent to the Howard Pond area. The CDBG request is for $227,000, and local funds contributed towards that will be $76,000. The resolution reads as follows. A resolution for the mayor and commissioners of the, before I read that resolution, give a little bit of background. The raceway, for those who aren't familiar with it, is essentially a stream or a ditch that had been constructed in the late 1800s to convey water to a mill
Right.
that was located off Delaware Avenue. That same raceway is now used to convey water to the water treatment plant, our 1.5 million gallon water treatment plant. Over the years, the raceway has silted in, and we're losing capacity in that. The raceway functions not only to convey water to the water treatment plant, but for storage, and it also enables sediment to settle out before it enters into the water treatment plant, assisting with water quality for the plant. It's in need of dredging. There was an observation made by an inspector from NDE in 2010 who noted that the raceway needed to be dredged. And since then, we have expended some funds in developing plans for that. And when the grant came up this year, we thought that this was a good project to apply for grant funding for. We were very successful with other water projects, such as the 3 water towers and that sort of thing, so. Okay, the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Elkton, Resolution 6-2013. A resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Elkton approving the application submission to the State of Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development for Community Development Block Grant Funds to support the Elkton Water Treatment Plant Raceway Dredging Project. Whereas the State of Maryland, by its Department of Housing and Community Development, has solicited applications from eligible jurisdictions of the state to apply for funds under the Maryland Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG program. And whereas the Town of Elkton is eligible to apply for funding under the aforementioned program through the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. And whereas the Mayor and Commissioners have identified the need to rehabilitate the Elkton Water Treatment Plant Raceway, located on the south side of Maryland 281 East Main Street, hereinafter the project, which has been described in more detail in the application. And whereas a public hearing relating to the application under the CDBG program was held on Wednesday, May 15, 2013 at 7:00 p.m. at the Elkton Municipal Building, Council Meeting Room 100 Railroad Avenue, Elkton, Maryland. Now therefore, the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Elkton hereby resolve the following. 1, that the application be submitted to the State of Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development for funding assistance in the amount of $227,000 under the Maryland Community Development Block Grant Program for the project. And 2, that Mayor Joseph L. Pisona shall hereby be authorized and empowered to execute any and all documents required for the submission of said application. Read and passed this 15th day of May, 2013.
Okay, have any questions of Jeannie? All right, then get a motion to accept.
You have to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You may want to.
Anyone ever wishing to speak for or against this? Anyone wishing to speak for or against?
Since there's no comments, Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the block grant application for the water treatment raceway.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, this public hearing's closed. Okay, Jeannie, next floodplain.
The FEMA and MDE have developed new floodplain maps for the state of Maryland essentially, but especially for our community. Those new floodplain maps will be effective July 8th of this year. We were required to update our floodplain ordinance to the state standards, minimum standards, before that effective date of July 8th, 2013. And so I've been working with the state and with FEMA to update the our floodplain ordinance, which is currently in our code, the town code. There's a model that they use for different communities, and they've worked with us with that model to tweak it to better suit the town of Elkton. So what you have before you, or what was sent to you via email by Lewis, was a copy of the draft ordinance for introduction tonight. This is ordinance 5-2013, an ordinance concerning the code of the town of Elkton, Title 15, Buildings and Construction. For the purpose of amending the code of the town of Elkton, Chapter 15.20, floodplain management, relating to the changes associated with revisions to the flood insurance studies and flood insurance rate maps. Whereas the Constitution of the State of Maryland, Article 11-E, Article 23A, Annotated Code of Maryland, and the Charter of the town of Elkton provide the authority under which the Board of Commissioners may adopt, repeal, and/or amend the ordinances of the town of Elkton, and whereas the town of Elkton by resolution agreed to meet the requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program and was accepted for participation in the program on March 18, 1980. As of that date, the initial effective date of the town of Elkton flood insurance rate map, all development and new construction as defined herein are to be compliant with these regulations. And whereas the Maryland Department of the Environment is requiring local jurisdictions to update their ordinances to fully comply with the requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program. Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Elkton hereby ordains that Section 1, the Code of the Town of Elkton, Title 15, Building and Construction, Chapter 15.20, Floodplain Management shall be repealed in its entirety, and Section 2, the Code of the Town of Elkton, Title 15, Building and Construction, Chapter 15.20, Floodplain Management shall be reenacted as hereinafter set forth and shall read as follows. And then the ordinance reads as follows.
41 pages long.
No.
I can read all 41 pages if you
No.
want. I can read really fast, but I don't think you want me to.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept ordinance 5/2014, the floodplain for introduction purposes only?
For introduction purposes, I so move.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Southern Trent?
Ken couldn't be here tonight, I think he's working night shift, isn't he?
Yeah, he's working.
Good evening. My name is Jason Taylor. I'm the assistant manager for Southern Trent Environmental Services Elkton project. We operate the water and wastewater treatment plant. Ken sends his regret that he could not be here tonight. Mr. Ken Benner, the manager.
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
I'm sorry.
Or move that a little closer.
Yes, sir. Ken asked me to come tonight to go over the past month of operating at the wastewater and water treatment plants. He sends his regrets that he couldn't be here. He is working with the town, the hydrant flushing that's going on this week. So there were no excursions for the month of March in 2013. Our effluent BOD, the average is 1.9 milligrams per liter, and the permit limits are 30 milligrams per liter. Total suspended solids were 1.3 milligrams per liter. The permit limits for that would be 30 milligrams per liter. The total nitrogen average for the year is 1,533.5 pounds, and the permit limits for the year is 37,156 pounds. So we're way below where we need to be. It's really looking good so far. And the total nitrogen for March, the average was 1.5 milligrams per liter, and the ammonia was 0.3 milligrams per liter, the average. The phosphorus total pounds for the year, our average was 49.4 pounds, and the total was 49.4 pounds for this year so far, and for the year to date, it's been 2,000. Our permit limits are 2,787. So we're doing really well with that, and the phosphorus average for the month was 0.6 milligrams per liter, and our E. coli most probable number average was 2.5, and our permit limits are 126. For the reactor, we had calibrated our ORP probes on April the 8th. We do that yearly. We had a school visit on April the 12th from Mount Sophia Academy. We did a school tour with the high school students, and that was a success, and it went real well. And we installed a new motor for the return activated sludge pump number 2 on the 16th of April. And we had to install a new dewatering belt for the belt filter press number 1, which has been in service for a little over 5 years now. So that's good to get that long out of them. And the 17th of April, the landscaping and grounds maintenance contractor started for the season, the grass cutter, and we got several bids for that. And we went with Shady Grove Landscaping, who we've had for the past several years. They gave us a really good price, and we went with them again this year. We had the Big Elk pump station generator training with Fidelity, that went well. Ken and myself and the lead operator Ernie Griffin and our new maintenance chief Ross Welch, we all attended that, and that went well. And for the water production, the total gallons processed for March 2013 for the surface water treatment plant was 25.14 million gallons. Well number 1 was 2.21 million gallons, and well number 3 was 12.85 million gallons, and the total was 40.2 million gallons per month. And the artesian use for the month of March 2013 was 250,280 gallons total. And for the water plant, we replaced the pressure switch at the 279 tower and continued investigation at the Deluxe Inn for pressure complaints. We have Horny Industrial Electronics calibrated the artesian meter at the reservoir, got that working, and we replaced the chlorine pump at well number 1, and we had a short in the wiring at this water plant for the soda ash pump, and we had to fix that, and the preparation for the 279 rehabilitation project is underway. And we sent in the reports for the annual volatile organic self-monitoring reports. Of course, the water treatment plant operating report and the water treatment plant quarterly chlorine residual monitoring report and the wastewater treatment plant monthly operating report and discharge monitoring reports were all filed. And there were no excursions for the month. This past Sunday, we had a pretty bad storm come through the plant, and it did cause a little bit of electrical problems with that new generator we got for the Big Elk. Really what it did was it just needs a new controller, which we've got that ordered, and it'll be in by Monday. Didn't really do any damage other than that from lightning is what we believe caused it. And it still operates, it still works. We just have to manually, if we lose power, turn it on and off until Fidelity's going to install a new controller for it. It'll be in and installed by Monday. And we operate the plant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and all the operators know the situation, and we'll be able to respond if there's a power outage. And the only other thing is for the dryer, our thermal fluid pump seal went bad this past week, and we sent that to Hills to get repaired. And it'll be back within a week, I believe, and we've got 5 years out of that. So, and we run that every day almost, especially in the summertime. So to get 5 years out of that seal is pretty good too,
Okay, very
And
good.
that's about it, I guess. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor, Commissioner.
Okay, Lewis.
The next item I have is Resolution R5, 2013. A resolution of the Mayor and Commissioner of the Town of Elkton rescinding Resolution R1, 2011, the dedicated unassigned fund for the planning, development, and construction of the Elkton Parks and Recreation Community Center, here and after the Elkton Recreation Community Center, and reallocating funds assigned under Resolution R1-2011, as set forth here and after. Whereas the Mayor and Commissioners have determined that the citizens of Elkton should be provided a facility for recreation, community, and interest programming. Whereas the Mayor and Commissioners have further determined that funds shall be allocated from the general fund, specifically from unassigned fund balance, in the general fund to pay for engineering and architectural services for the Elkton Recreation Community Center project. Whereas the Mayor and Commissioners passed Resolution R1-2011 on March 16, 2011, allocating $1.5 million to the planning, development, and construction of the Elkton Recreation Community Center project. And by this resolution, the Mayor and Commissioners shall rescind Resolution R1-2011, reduce the amount committed for the project by $1 million, which shall be reallocated to the unassigned fund balance in the general fund, and committing $500,000 to pay for engineering and architectural services for the Elkton Recreation Community Center project. And whereas the Mayor and Commissioners have further determined that capital debt service along with operating costs for the staffing, facility operations, maintenance programming of the Elkton Recreation Community Center shall be included in the annual Parks and Rec budget at such time when the project is approved for construction. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Elkton as follows, that the amount of $500,000 shall be committed from the general fund's unassigned fund balance for engineering and architectural services for the Elkton Recreation Community Center. That's it.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept Resolution R5, 2013?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Discussion I have for that is that I know we spoke about the cost of the as planned, to go on to the budget of Park and Rec. Is that correct?
There's no money allocated for it.
Okay, so we haven't done any studies or anything as far as what we know that it will cost for operating and things like that,
No.
right? Okay. Okay, just want to make sure we're fully aware of that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Next time I have ordinance 2-213. This was introduced at the meeting on May 1st, and it basically amends the Elkton zoning ordinance, Article 12, supplementary use regulation, Section 29, housing for the elderly and handicapped. The two changes to this particular section of the zoning ordinance involve a section that would indicate that families where either partner is 62 or more years of age, where the term partner refers to lawfully married individuals. And the other change is only minimum road frontage at 100 feet rather than 150 feet. This was primarily designed to accommodate the project at 214 North Street, so the jail, or the former jail and senior center, Buckler Senior Center, could be moved forward with their development for a 52-unit senior housing project. I'd recommend that the board adopt this in order to allow that project to go forward.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept ordinance 2-2013?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The same item I have, ordinance 3-213. Ordinance amends the section 6.04, the dog ordinance, and allows for the dogs to be unleashed on public property that is designated for dog parks. Specifically, the board is aware that the town received a $24,000 grant from the Parks and Playgrounds DNR program, and we just received a permit from MDE to put it in the East Meadow Park. So Mary McGall is getting bids for the fence to be, a fenced area to be constructed in the park. And this ordinance will allow those dogs to be released in there rather than being confined to a leash as required by law now. Essentially, that's the main change.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept ordinance 3-2013?
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance 3-2013.
Have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, when she gets the bid, Lois, evidently she will bring those bids back to you before it moves further.
So she'll bring them to the board, bring them to a meeting.
She is or you are?
I'm sorry?
She is or you will be?
She will. Good project.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay. I don't really have any old business. Mary Jo?
No.
Earl?
I have none.
Charlie?
None.
Question? Okay. I don't have any really nothing to report for new business. Is it?
Now, I just want to again thank everyone for coming out tonight and for giving us your feedback, and we will definitely take it and move forward.
Earl?
Well, I'm starting to see the certain people pushing carts around the community. It look like they're collecting scrap now, and don't know what we can do about this except for, I guess, got to go to the owners of the carts, I guess. But we need to put a stop somehow because the carts are being left on the streets. Just saw it coming in tonight. Someone picking up garbage from somebody's house with an Acme cart. Somehow or another, got to put something in place where we don't get stuck with the carts. So I'm just bringing this to the table, and I don't know exactly if that's going to be something that we have to enforce or law enforcement. I'm not sure who, but we've got to put a little cap on it. That's it.
I did want to just say, just thought of one thing. Everybody probably did see the Cecil Wig this morning, but I think they mentioned the part about George's. It's been a long time coming, and the buildings were knocked down, but as of today, the actual George's restaurant was being demolished. It should be down by the end of this week. And I think it's something we've been working towards all these years, but we're finally hoping to get that corner cleaned up for once and for all.
So now that you're cleaning George's up, what efforts are being made to be done with RMR?
We'll work on that one next.
Well, you got
Working on
something
that.
in place for one, you should have something in place for the other, but we'll see. I just want to mention, you know, I'm on the scholarship committee for the Hartford Cecil. You know, when we go to our meetings, we provide opportunities for students to get scholarships, and all the municipalities that we meet with, we have two $500 scholarships. There's only 4 kids to apply. That's a shame. I don't know, society must be changing, but it's just a shame. That's it. That's it.
All right. We do have time. If Robbie, you signed up for this, do you have any other public comments you want to make? Such as public comment, I'll give you
Very
mine.
good. Well, thank you. I would agree with what Commissioner Givens mentioned earlier when we do have a public hearing on probably the most important thing in the town is our budget. I think maybe more than 5 minutes. I think some of the, I was fortunate enough I was able to get through it, but I know some of the other folks in the audience wouldn't be able to get to maybe they had some water or sewer comments or maybe even the major facility fund comments. I do have a quick question when you brought up the George's Restaurant. Is that something that the town has paid for to demolish and put in the lien against it? Is the bank has paid to do it?
Thanks a lot.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Bob, you have an opportunity you'd like to?
I could probably speak from here. Rising Sun is going to pass an ordinance, or try to pass an ordinance about comments, because after the meetings, after you guys have already voted, that's the only time we have a chance to voice our opinion on anything, or maybe even give you some ideas on what you just voted on. I think when you have should be a public meeting for everybody, and not at all times is anybody going to raise their hand and ask a question, but I mean, Dick, it's the first time he's been here, and when Earl made a couple of statements and so forth, and with the janitor, Earl, I wouldn't refer to the janitor not doing his job. My point was the insurance and the overhead was way too high for that salary cap. That was my point with that. On May the 20th, you have to send in your budget for the fiscal year, evidently, for your taxes. Is that correct? Well, you vote on a budget, introduction of a budget here today. Well, when do you vote on the budget? If you vote on the budget and you change this budget, wouldn't that have a reflection on what you sent to the state?
It will. No.
The state wants our budget number, our tax number, by May 20th. Since the board has only introduced it and not agreed to that tax rate, we will not notify them. They just won't be able to generate the tax credits that they insist that they have to have this information for. So I can't do anything about it. That's just the rules.
A suggestion about the carts. I know the police department's busy and a lot of other issues, but when they see a cart that's stolen, which they are stolen from some business's property, they ought to be able to make those guys walk or drive behind them in the car, make them walk them back, and take them into where they stole them from. That's one way of getting them off the street. And we see them around all the time. Another thing, it just amazed me the editorial in the Cecil Wig. It's written on any numerous times after a town meeting, and reporters never been here from the Cecil Wig. A lot of times the comments would have some input on what could be done in the town, but the Cecil Wig is never here to report on anything. Where do they get the information from? They take it from the tape, take it from the tape.
Yep.
I mean, Mrs. Palco, she's here on a number of times, and she writes what she sees.
No, he is at a lot of the workshops, so I notice.
Okay. I don't know whether, but as I say, Dick's first time here, and he's worked with budgets in the company that he's had for ever and ever and ever. And he could have a lot of input maybe with Steve when they can sit down and go over some things, because he's doing budgets and he's worked with insurances and whatever may be. He'd be a big help to you. And thank you for acknowledging that you haven't been watching the hen house very closely, let's put it that way. And the feasibility study about how much it's going to cost for the community center, how many times did I ask that question and nobody responded to it? If you all remember right, how many times did I ask that? How much it's going to cost to operate it? Nobody knew because nobody did a study. So let's just don't get in that situation again where you jump into things without finding out what it's going to cost and how it's going to be paid for. Grants are fine, but grants are not the answer to everything, because the state's broke, the federal government's broke, and now the small towns are beginning to become broke. So we got to run everything like a business and run it on a real true budget. All of you guys, and I said this the last meeting, all the other towns, the commissioners have a department that they oversee. Every town in Cecil County, they don't get paid. Those people oversee those departments. And they probably disagree a lot of times with the department heads or whatever it may be, but they work it out. I think that should be done here. Everybody should be in charge of a department and sit down with the department heads and go over issues. Because after all, you guys are the bosses. You were elected to run the town. You were elected to be the boss. And that's the way it should be.
Okay. Mr. Lindman, you have anything else you want to say?
You all basically have my message, but the budget is passed, but that doesn't mean that you can't pursue cost reductions in this year's current budget. And I think from the standpoint of you five people, you need to work with the people in the budget and try to help them reduce the budget, whether it's overtime or the cost of the budget, whether it's overtime or whatever it is. And if you work with it starting with this budget, then you'll have a better frame of reference for the budget for next year as to what you can do and what you can't do. Another thing I wanted to say is, Earl, I'm impressed with what you did. You went to Middletown, Havre de Grace, and Aberdeen. That's how you learn, is from other people, often. And I think that was a good thing. And so I encourage you to do more of that, all of you to do more of that, and to talk to people in other towns, get ideas, talk to people that work for the town, get their ideas. Maybe you need to form a suggestion group or suggestion plan that employees make suggestions. How can you cut costs? Do things like that. So anyway, I appreciate you listening to me, and good luck.
Thank you.
Well, it says here, this presentation for induction. Well, when do you vote on it? You voted for the induction part of it, but when do you vote on the actual budget?
Next month, the first Wednesday of next month.
First Wednesday next month?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing nothing else?
I have a question. What would be, I'm trying to listen to that and understand what's going on here, but what would the tax rate be based on the current?
Come up here, please.
State your name, tell them.
Yeah,
State your name.
I'm just trying to understand, what would the tax rate be based on the?
State your name, state your name and...
James Milwell. I'm trying to understand what the tax rate will be based on the shelving of the community center, which is evidently been established. And I assume that also means that the police station, there was some talk about moving the police station over to where the community center is. That's also been shelved, is that correct?
That's in the future, we're looking at it.
So that's not currently.
That's not in the budget.
So what will the tax rate be? I mean, it was talked about at 17 cents or whatever that I saw per whatever they're going to raise it. What will the new tax rate be now?
The proposed tax rate is 58.56 in the cover letter. It's in the cover letter, the proposed budget book.
So what will be, I mean, what's the percentage increase, or what's the, you know, before it said 17 cents above the current rate or whatever?
It's also in this letter, 6.115 cents above the constant yield tax rate of 52.41.
So how do you figure out what the new tax rate will be? You take your assessed value of your house times that number?
For your tax bill, that's how you would figure out your tax bill rate. Whatever ultimately is approved as a tax rate, you'll multiply that by your assessment. That'll be your
That's
tax
in
bill.
place over two spaces to the left.
It is, the tax rate is always expressed in terms of per $100 of assessed value.
So that .06,
Point
Number.
0.5856 times your assessment.
Put 2 zeros in front of it.
times your assessed value of your house.
That's back to the town portion of your property tax bill.
Something that wasn't brought up here tonight relative to the gentleman from Severn Trent that talked here was the article I saw today in the WIG about the grinders or whatever on some of the water treatment facilities here being torn up, and there needs to be repair and cost involved with doing that. I'd like to hear more, if the gentleman can speak to that, but I'd like to know more about what the town costs will incur to fix this equipment.
Right now, we're just looking into it. We haven't made a decision on it as yet. We're looking at some other options and seeing what we can do to hopefully to cut it down, if anything, and see if we can try to make this a little bit better project for us.
What does that mean exactly?
Right now, we have not made a decision on where we're going to go with it as of yet.
So how to correct the problem, in other words?
Right.
There is a piece of equipment that's needed to correct that problem.
Right, several $100,000 to repair it.
About $300,000, a little more.
Right. Who will bear the cost of that? I mean, is that ultimately going to be borne by the taxpayers?
Might be through
Ultimately by the users of the water fund, sewer fund.
But we have already planned for that though.
Right.
So it's not something additional, it's something that's already been put in place with the increase that was already put on the water bill.
it comes out of the water fund.
Well, actually, sewer fund.
Water and sewer fund.
If I can indulge you here, I wanted to ask a couple more questions. I had been in to speak to Mr. George a while back about the 5-year extension on the Artesian agreement with the wastewater treatment, et cetera, water supply. And I understand the take before is, these numbers, I'm not sure if they're exactly right, but the take was like 375,000 gallons, reduced to 250,000, is that correct? If I understood correctly, Mr. George, on what you told me, we're not paying for any water currently that's not being used, is that correct?
Right. Actually, we probably take more than that.
Okay. If the rate's going down in terms of our required take, why wouldn't the water rates similarly corresponding with that also be reduced? I asked Mr. George that question, he said no, he didn't think they would. But I wanted to raise that amongst the commissioners here is, why wouldn't, if the take's gonna be reduced that much from 375 to 250, why wouldn't that reduce over time the water rates that the ratepayers are paying?
There are other components to the cost of operating the water treatment plant. Distributing it, that's just part of the cost.
So, I mean,
Purchase from Artesian, just part of the cost of operating the water system.
so the fact that the take's been reduced, substantially in terms of percentage-wise, that's not gonna change the rates at all, it's not gonna reduce the rates.
The rates were adopted last November for 3 years, the next 3 years.
Right. This extension goes for 5 years though,
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
So that means there's no anticipated reduction. And I guess my initial take on this, when this was first signed, the rates went through the roof, that we'd have to suffer through this for 3 years. And then after that, hopefully the rates would come down. But now, because the 5-year extension's been added to it, I mean, it looks like out into the foreseeable future, the rates will continue to go up. I mean, they're not gonna come down. Is that correct? I mean, I thought it would reach a
The
point
rates will,
after
the
the
water
initial
rates will
3 years.
likely not be reduced. The cost of operating our system will continue to rise. So we wouldn't reduce the rate, we'll be back where we started from.
Even though the required take from Artesian has been reduced substantially.
Substantial.
But that's still not gonna, even over the 5-year period of time, it's not gonna reduce the rates.
No.
I'm trying to understand that, as a layperson trying to, it doesn't seem right. I mean, the rates were way up so high, predicated on the required take that Artesian required us to do based on the contract that was signed. You would think that, okay, the take is being reduced, there would be a commensurate reduction in the cost as well to the rates.
I think it's.
I'm trying to understand that.
I think it's the cost of the operation of the plant and producing the water and all that. The cost of that, it goes up on us, and then the material that they use goes up considerably. Am I correct?
Yes.
chemicals besides the purchase from.
Yeah, but we're using less chemicals and
But the plan that we have now is for the next 3 years.
That's correct.
Our water rates, and then we will look at them again at that time. So I don't want to say at this time they're going to go up, they're going to go down, because this isn't the plan we have for the next 3 years, but we will look at that again. Or whoever's sitting in these seats will look at that again.
Yeah, you can understand, I hope my perplexity, just trying to understand when the take comes down from 375 to 250, you would think there would be a commensurate reduction in rates. Maybe not during these
There's
first
many other
3 years.
components to those rates besides the artesian water purchase. There's the contractual prices and things.
Right, so you're paying
that are
separate rent to
there's
operate
salary
this
and
plant.
wages and things and utilities, the equipment, there's a lot of other components to.
But weren't those were already factored in before this dramatic rate increase of a year ago or 2 years ago when it went through the roof? I mean, those were costs that were already there. I thought the big jump in rates was as a function of the fact that we had this required take of
The
375.
big jump in rate was because we were operating below, way so far below our ability to operate that plant. We're subsidizing it. So now we're actually earning money and having reserve in there to fix stuff.
So you're saying those
So in other words,
costs,
if we were a business, we would have been out of business.
Right.
so those costs rose so dramatically, not just because of the 375 required take, but because of other operating
One
expenses.
fraction of that
Right.
adjustment. That's all.
That's it.
Okay,
Right.
great, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, hearing nothing else, get a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second, all those in favor? This meeting is adjourned.